It's no fun when our kids are sick, but we may just have found the silver lining. Apple and raspberry and orange flavoured electrolyte slushies made by Rehydrate.
Rehydrate slushies are a tasty way to get essential electrolytes into our little ones when they're dehydrated from sickness or even just the Aussie heat. They're delicious and they'll help your little ones feel better in no time. Grab Rehydrate from Coles today.
It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
But what I noticed during isolation in particular was just how much my body craved that slower pace and how much happier we were as a family as we just were more intentional about creating that space to do so.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Well, it's only been a couple of months, but gee, it's been fun. The Happy Families podcast with Mrs. Happy Families joining me as my co-host. I'm Dr. Justin Coulson, by the way. It's been so much fun getting to know you in a totally different way, Kylie.
It's been a steep learning curve for me, that's for sure, but I've loved every minute of it.
Well, the feedback keeps coming through thick and fast. We're getting reviews and ratings consistently at Apple Podcasts or wherever people listen to their podcasts, and we appreciate that so very much. But I wanted to just pick up on something that we mentioned the other day. We were talking about the Christmas ninjas, and we're going to put on the Facebook page today. We got a photo from Laura, who was the Christmas ninja, the ninja brownie deliverer. And it's so clever what she's done. She just said, Justin and Kylie, I want to thank you both for the podcast. I love the practical solutions, honesty and openness you share with us listeners. Your podcast is my go-to pick-me-up for both work and personal inspiration, which was so awesome. But that episode that we did, 176, everyone's gotten so on board with that whole teaching your kids how to love giving episode. And Laura sent through a picture of her kids doing some ninja brownie deliveries, and it's so beautifully presented. She's got the sugar in the bottom and the cocoa, and then there's some other white stuff. I don't know what that is. Flour. And then there's the chocolate chips, and see, you can tell who does the cooking in this house. So we're going to put that up on the Facebook page because I think it's just fabulous, and we love getting the kind words that come through. Now, Mrs. Happy Families. Our last podcast episode for the year, we're going to take some time off and be with our family. But every time we do a podcast on a Friday, we normally call it I'll Do Better Tomorrow, because it's a chance for us to evaluate what went on during the week. It's a chance for us to review how we can be better as parents, what our insights and learnings are, how we can be more mindful. And this time, well, we're going to do how we can do better next year. I'll Do Better Next Year is today's podcast episode. And you've been doing some thinking about how you can do better next year, which I find very hard to believe, frankly.
You're too kind. 2020 has been this crazy year for so many of us, but it's given me some time to really think about, the things that are really important to me specifically, and how I want to incorporate that learning into next year. And I think the thing that stands out to me the most is intention. I recognize that as parents, we are really intentional about a lot of the things we do, but there's some things that I feel I could be more intentional.
Really?
Yeah. So I have 3 things that I want to be more intentional about next year.
Okay. Is screen use one of them?
No.
Oh, come on. If I was writing my list for you, I'd put screens on there. I'm just saying.
Well, it's not on there. I'm just telling you. So the first thing is I want to be more intentional about slowing the pace of our lives down. And I know when I say that, people who know us are kind of looking at, us going, you've got 6 children and life is full. Like, how do you think you're going to do this? But what I noticed during isolation in particular was just how much my body craved that slower pace and how much happier we were as a family as we just were more intentional about creating that space to do so. So I don't really know at this point how I'm going to do it.
Well, that was my next question.
But I do know that it's really important, and it's made a huge difference to how the rest of the year's gone. As we've gone back into some kind of normalcy, I have noticed that, things are speeding up a lot faster. But I have also tried to kind of just, where I can, pull things back and go, you know what, that's actually not that important. We don't need to do that. And part of that actually has come about with our every night watching a Christmas movie. That has really slowed down our evenings, which I've loved.
I think that's a really nice idea. And I recall during isolation, everybody was saying that they liked the slower pace, that they loved the fact that their families weren't so busy, and everyone was making these commitments. We're not going to speed back up again once we're allowed to live our lives. And yet, at least here in Australia, where we are pretty much allowed to live our lives now, everybody's sped back up. So it'll be interesting to see how we can put a plan together for that. I'm looking forward to our quarterly immersion. For those of you who are not familiar, every 3 months, Kylie and I disappear for 2 nights. We get somebody to watch the kids, and we have 2 nights where we go and set
plan.
Yeah, we set with intention our next 12 weeks, the next term, the next quarter, and we do that because we know how important it is to get that intention right. Okay, well, you know what? One of the ways that I want to do better tomorrow, one of my key learnings from this year is that there's always too much to do. So it's kind of aligned with what you're saying, but I had this insight. I thought that everything was going to slow down with COVID. But for me, while I wasn't traveling, I think that I was busier this year from a work point of view than I've ever been before. We've launched a membership. We've done so many things within the business. We've hired new people. There's so much going on in Happy Families as a business that, and there is so much to do in 2021. You know, as we've looked at the calendar for what we've got planned for next year.
Are you going to undo my plans of slowing down?
Phenomenal. There's so much to do. But the point here is there's always so much to do. And my learning from this is because there is always so much to do. There's, in fact, not just so much, there's always too much to do. What that means is that I need to stop and focus on the stuff that must be done because some things are more important than others. There's that analogy, that story that's been around for years and years and years and years about the manager from Coca-Cola, I think it was, giving a talk, and he's talking about how in life we're juggling all of these balls all the time, our family, our work, all of these other commitments. We're just juggling and juggling and juggling. But some of the balls that we're juggling are rubber while others are glass. And it's really important while we're juggling that if we're going to drop a ball, that we don't drop the glass balls. Things like family, things like our values, things like, you know, the stuff that's at the very core of who we are. We can drop the other stuff. It will bounce back. It might take a while to regather it and find it and start juggling it again, but we'll get that back. There's always a juggle going on. There's always too much to do, but we need to make sure we keep the right balls in the air. So that's one of my big learnings for this year. COVID has taught me that we need to be intentional. It's pretty much the same as you. I'm just framing it differently. Let's come back in a sec and talk about maybe a couple of others.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
For a happier family, try a Happy Families membership because a happy family doesn't just happen. Details at happyfamilies.com.au.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time poor parent. And today we're talking about how we want to be more intentional for 2021.
Well, yeah, it's I'll do better next year, and so far intention has kind of been the central theme. Kylie,
next year feels so long away when you say it like that.
Next year is like a couple of weeks, and we're
really
there.
Is,
amazing.
Yeah.
So intention was your number one. What's your other big learning? I mean, this is less about setting goals for the new year and more about saying I've learned something that I think is valuable and I want to be able to carry that into our lives moving forward. What would your other one be?
Taking time out for me to fill my cup.
Oh, so you're talking about more me time and less we time.
It's a bit like that, but no, I think sometimes as mums, we feel like we kind of have to, be the martyr, in our efforts to be the best that we can be, we kind of forget that who we are and what makes us tick. And obviously we've done some podcasts. We've talked about this a little bit, this idea of me time versus we time. And but what I learned through isolation was that in order for me to bring my best self to the table, I need to find ways that I can be creative in my space that enable me to feel joy and purpose outside of my role as a mum, because that's only one of my roles. And that as I do that I find joy in being able to spend time with everybody through the process. So next year, I want to really be intentional about the things that I do that fill my cup, that enable me to bring my best self to the table when I come.
So I'm very excited for you to be doing something next year. Kylie has just enrolled in school. Kylie's going to go back to school next year, which hopefully will fill your cup but not empty ours. because Kylie is going to become a florist. Kylie,
well, I'm not going to become a florist, but I'm going to learn the art of floristry. That's probably a better way of saying it.
So excited for you.
I'm very, very excited about it.
And whenever you've got school, let's say it's on a Wednesday, I'll be looking after dinner that night.
Oh, I love the idea of that.
So we'll be having takeaway every Wednesday. well, I think the only other thing that I was going to mention is everybody else. One of the big learnings that I had this year is that everybody else always looks like they've got it together. And to me, that's a big learning because we usually, I know it's kind of that whole Instagram thing, right? We're watching everybody's highlights reel and we're living the challenging parts of life that nobody ever gets to see. But it's more, I think what I've seen is that if everybody else does look like they've got it together, you probably look like you've got it together as well, which means that you probably do. And as I've thought about what we've been doing as a family this year, some of the conversations that we've had with our kids, I want to have more of those conversations. If we're going to talk about what I'll do better next year, I'll do better tomorrow, this theme, some of the conversations we've had with our kids this year have made me think, I think we're doing okay with this parenting thing. There's some ups and downs. There's some bits that I wish we could redo. There's some bits that I wish would never have happened. And some of them are really challenging, even for the parenting expert that's written the books. And yet, when I sit down and have these conversations with the kids, my heart is just so full of gratitude for the great people that they're becoming. And if I'm feeling that, I know that the people who are jumping into our Happy Families membership and the people who are engaging with us on Facebook and even you, if you listen to the podcast, you're doing better than you think. And to other people who are watching you, they're shaking their heads and going, oh man, I wish I could be as good as them as a parent. And the more people I've talked to, the more people I've watched, the more I've considered that this year, the more that stood out to me. So that's kind of a learning. Take the time to have the conversations with the kids, build the relationships, and every now and again, just pause. And when you're climbing a mountain, you feel like you're not getting anywhere because you keep looking at the top of the mountain thinking, I'm never going to get there. I've been hiking for an hour, 2 hours, and the top is still that far away. And then you turn around and you look at the view across the valley and you realize that you've come a long way. And I reckon as parents, we need to do that more in 2021.
Well, that fits in beautifully with my last thinking.
Does it really? So
does.
Just a quick heads up. We haven't orchestrated this at all. There's been no planning around this. I had no idea what you were going to say. So what's your last one?
I just wanted to be more intentional about our family togetherness because this year, like you said, we've had some really beautiful moments where we've slowed the pace down. I've had a little bit of time out and been able to come back to the table and we've had conversations with our kids that have just blown my mind in how they have interpreted or seen the way we do family life and been so grateful for their insights that help me kind of just recognize that maybe we are doing all right.
Yeah. Without over-disclosing, one of the kids recently said to us, I really love how things work in our family. I look at all my friends and they all fight with their parents all the time, but I really like how we don't fight in our family. So that's kind of what you're getting at, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, the future is uncertain. Who knows what 2021 is going to bring? But may it for you bring the most wonderful celebrations, plenty of opportunities to be with your family, to make your family happier and much stronger relationships and bonds. As always, we hope that you've enjoyed the Happy Families podcast. We've had such a delightful time talking with you. We'll be back in mid-January to continue the podcast and bring some light and life and love into your and your family's lives. In the meantime, if you do enjoy the podcast, hey, Christmas is the perfect time. You're slowing down. You've got the opportunity now to jump onto Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and review so that next year more people can find the show and make their families happier. We'd be so grateful if you'd do that. A Merry Christmas to you. Have a wonderful new year. A big thank you to Justin Rulon from Bridge Media for his role in producing the podcast and making it sound as good as it does. We're also so appreciative to a new friend and a wonderful executive producer, Craig Bruce, for the great work that he's done in coaching us and helping us to figure out how we can say the stuff we want to say so that we can help you with your time-poor parenting. while still giving you really important answers. It's been a privilege to work with you, Craig. And if you'd like more information, as always, about how we can help your family to be happier, you can find all the information you need at happyfamilies.com.au.